Hi everyone, this is Tim. Welcome to North and South Podcasts, and it's a real pleasure for me to introduce this person, and a real honour for me to introduce this person because this is someone whose meditations I've heard a lot, and she's coming on today to talk to us. And when she came on before, I was a bit starstruck because I know her voice so much, so it's going to be a great conversation. This topic is probably the most important for me, and it's about meditation, which is something I've tried in the past and struggled with, which I now do every single day. And I've been waiting for a while to speak to the right person about this topic. And I've got this person with us today. So, Nicki, do you want to give us your full name and tell us who you are?
I am Nicki. I'm from Nicki Clarke Hypnotherapy. I'm actually a clinical hypnotherapist, and I do a lot of hypnotic meditations which go out to people so they can listen to rather than actually come and attending therapy.
Brilliant. And you actually go and work with people one to one, and is it online as well? The different ways that you support people?
Absolutely. I work one to one that's dealing with specific issues, but I do have Monday meditation group, where there's a group of women who are dealing with menopause who have a weekly meditation just to focus on specific elements of what they need to specify on. I also have a teenage meditation group, and I'm working to get a men's only one as well set up soon.
That sounds really good. And keep us posted about those developments and your ongoing work. We'll put your details in the podcast notes for anyone who wants to reach out and speak to you. I've actually done a meditation with Nicki in person, but I've spent hours of my life doing her audio meditations, which are really, really good. They're on for about 30 minutes and they really allow you to get deep. But meditation is not just about spending long periods of time. It can be short periods of time. I'm going to explore all the different options today. So, Nicki, it was great to do that meditation with you I think it was early in 2023. And you
Yeah.
then sent me a couple of audios, which I've listened to a lot. Just before we get into the nuts and bolts of it, what's your basic definition of meditation? For me, it's about just being able to focus on something, which might sound a little bit abstract. People often have religious connections with meditation, etc. But what's your basic definition of meditation?
My basic definition of meditation is just getting the calmness of mind. I think our minds are so overactive and so busy at the moment, dealing with everything that needs to be dealt with, that we need to be able to just calm the mind and focus on finding peace within as well as peace outside. So that would be my definition of it.
Brilliant. And I think that the ability to just pay attention to your mind and think about why your mind is the way it is something that a lot of people, I think, go through the whole life and never do. It's like they just accept things at that emergent evolutionary level, when in fact, there's a lot more to the mind that we can discover through observing it and relaxing and doing different forms of meditation and mindfulness, which we'll come to later. Now, you do a particular branch of meditation, which you mentioned earlier, called hypnotherapy. Now, I've spoken to people who've done hypnotherapy on the podcast in the past. I've spoken to people about the menopause as well, which is a group that you work with. But what's your particular approach to meditation, the hypnotherapy aspect, and how does that work?
Okay. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. I trained 30 years ago. So clinical hypnotherapy is all about assisting people with issues, could be phobias, fears, depression, anxiety, stress. So I've studied the mind for 30 years, and basically the meditation that I work is focused on specific elements. So the meditation group that I run on a Monday will focus, one week it'll focus on removing any stress they've collated over the last few weeks. One week will focus on the confidence. So meditation is about generic. However, my hypnotic meditations are focused on specific elements. So we can have confidence, self-esteem, get rid of the anxiety, procrastination. I work with marathon runners, so improving the sports. Basically, hypnotherapy takes meditation to the next level, so it can focus on anything you want to improve in life. That's what it achieves. In terms of where meditation is from, it's about your subconscious mind. And I think if we all appreciated the absolute amazing achievements of our subconscious minds, and we realize what it's capable of, we could all drastically change our lives for the better.
Absolutely. And I think that the theory of hypnotherapy, correct me if I'm wrong, and you can elaborate on this, is the idea of the most important thing is to access that kind of relaxation. And
Absolutely.
early on in your meditations, it's very much about letting things go, relaxing, focusing on the breath, and really going down into that almost meditative state of
Yeah,
relaxation and letting go. And then talking about the more positive things that you want to work on. Is that a good
absolutely.
summary of how hypnotherapy works?
It is. I think the problem with hypnotherapy is it's got a bad reputation because people see hypnotherapy as hypnotherapists on stage getting people to act like chickens, and what they don't realize is there's only 10% of the population can actually do that. They're called somnambulistics. That the rest of the population can't actually achieve that state of hypnotic trance. But meditation's all about just relaxing the mind. And if we can actually, that's why with my hypnotic scripts, I progressively relax the whole body.
Mm.
So you get into a state of, actually, I don't really care what she's going to say next because I'm really enjoying this feeling. And then I can dig to the subconscious mind where it says, yeah, I do want to feel more confidence, or yeah, I do want to get rid of that rubbish that I've been collating, or I don't want to feel this depressed anymore. And that's the whole point of, so all of my hypnotic meditations are, let's get the body into a really, really deep state of absolute wonderful relaxation. And then we can achieve the goal that you need to achieve.
Excellent. And I think it's a wonderful ambition to be able to access these relaxed states. And sometimes people can be watching, I don't know, a TV program and feel really relaxed and can be doing some gardening and things like that. But when
Yeah.
you're relaxed and happy just with your own mind, because we often spend a lot of our time, there's a great quote from the James Joyce novel, I think it's Dublin, is about a man who spends his whole life 1 meter outside his body, always looking around at what's going on in the next thing. The power of just focusing on the inner life and being happy with spending time with yourself and getting relaxed and content with
Yeah,
your mind is something which I think modern society just forgets at its peril. So I think it's great
absolutely.
work that you do. My history of meditation is a bit of a, oh, I haven't got time for that. It won't work for me kind of thing. And I've got a genetic illness and I've had problems with it for 20 years. I read a couple of health books by a guy called Deepak Chopra, who's a bit of a, uses the ideas of Western science and the ideas of Eastern mysticism and kind of tries to unify them for
Yeah.
more holistic
Incredible.
approaches.
Yeah.
And he's not everyone's cup of tea, but I read his 2 books, and one of the things that I got from it was about meditation. And I had a torrid time trying to meditate. It just wasn't working.
It's
I haven't,
difficult.
it's very, very hard. It takes discipline. And I actually gave up on it. And then I started doing yoga in my mid 20s again with this background of this genetic disease causing me problems about with day-to-day living. And one day there was only service at the yoga session. The guy said, do you want to do a meditation? And we did a 40-minute meditation. And afterwards, me and this other person just looked at each other and went, wow. It was like a peak experience. And something happened which I don't always hear meditation. I don't want to use the word experts, but people who practice meditation a lot, they don't always say it quite how I'm going to say it here. And maybe it's unusual for me, but after 20 minutes, sometimes it's shorter, sometimes it's longer, you will go into a wakeful rest where you are
Yes.
aware and awake. It's not a dream, it's not a sleep
No.
state, where you are aware, but the chatter mind just stops, all worries stop, and you're just in this beautiful present moment. And it's almost
Absolutely.
like a religious awakening. And I don't want to use the word religion, but I can see why some people say it is a religious awakening.
Yeah.
And it was just beautiful. I was happy just to be me in my body without any worries. And it was absolutely
Yeah.
beautiful. And that was the breakthrough moment for me that came from that yoga guy. And is this something that you've experienced the deeper you go into things, and how has it worked for you?
Absolutely. When I first went into hypnotherapy, I was 29 years old. My background is I was actually abused by a doctor when I was 11,
Hmm.
and it messed up my life quite significantly. And there's nothing you can help with counselling or talking about it. It just really messes with your life. So when I came across hypnotherapy, I was 27. I'd never heard about it. I'd never heard it before, apart from on television. I'd been to see someone on the Liverpool Empire who'd got someone eating an onion and thought it was an apple. And I thought, wow, that's quite incredible that you can take someone's mind like that. But a hypnotherapist was advertising, so I went to see him to see if he could help me. And it took me to be in a very, very deep state of meditation and total progressive relaxation, but then helped me to see things that were much clearer, because you'd got into a state of meditation where everything's so vividly clear. There was no other comments or things in your mind or things messing it up to take away what you needed to achieve. So it helped you to just achieve what you needed to achieve.
Absolutely.
And that's why I studied it, and that's why I thought, oh, I want to do this. I want to help people, because it's a good thing to do, to be able to do things to help people, isn't it? So yeah, so I was 29, so I've been doing it for 30 years. And that's still why I do it now. It didn't help, it didn't sort out my problem immediately, but it has sorted out my problem since.
That's good to hear. I know that a lot of the literature now, particularly to do with post-traumatic stress disorder, history of
Yeah,
trauma and abuse, now involves the theory of relaxing people and going
yeah,
back to what happened and getting them to a point where they can examine what happened and take the
yeah,
stress and the trauma and the negative reaction away from it, to kind of
yeah.
disempower the event. And
Absolutely.
that
That's what it does.
but this is something which has been in the literature increasingly over the last 2 decades. And it may well have been around before then. That's just since I've shown an interest in it. And I remember reading
Yeah,
it going, that sounds right. But you're now getting hypnotherapists who are saying these things. And then you've just given your case study for yourself and also the way that you help
yeah,
others. But there are people I know who try to suppress things and bad events. I don't want to talk about it.
yeah.
Particularly,
Well,
it's,
that's the beauty.
yeah,
That's the
yeah,
beauty of hypnotherapy, because it's a non-talking therapy, which is
yeah,
why it's become more and more popular. I mean, I've
yeah.
worked for the last 2 years with a lot of teenagers who, as you know, teenagers don't want to talk about stuff.
Mm,
They don't want to talk about what's happened to them, but they're cutting themselves, they're hurting themselves, they're causing themselves a lot of harm. But the beauty of hypnotherapy is that they just come in, they just say, "Get rid of it, please. I just don't want to talk about it, but help me." And the subconscious works on deleting those negative feelings, so you don't have to spend months talking about the issues,
yeah.
creating more issues. It can be eliminated in 2-3 sessions.
That's really helpful to know, because I know some people who just, I don't want to talk about it, they bury it, whereas
Yeah,
it's actually very empowering. And if you think about the amount of medication and sometimes hospitalization and the overheads and the costs involved, a lot of these strategies, the
it's
cost
not
effective.
working.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that we can approach things, and I think it is getting better. It is becoming more a part of the literature, but I think that when you've got people whose lives are affected by this deep trauma, these alternative methods where you can examine something and take the emotion out of it and go into that ultra relaxed state. Because as soon
Yeah,
as someone starts to panic or get tense about it, you've kind of, the animal brain takes over the fight or flight response. To
it
stay
is.
in
Yeah,
that relaxed state, it's very, very powerful, isn't it?
absolutely. Yeah, that's the
Now,
problem, isn't it? The monkey will take over.
absolutely, and we'll come to that a bit later. Now, I've listened to your meditations, particularly in the morning, which are 30, 40-minute meditations where you relax and then you talk about issues, and I've found them really useful. I think that one of the benefits of social media and smartphones and the internet is you can actually use YouTube and apps and WhatsApp to share meditations, which are really, really
Yeah,
good. So I've got your meditation saved on my phone. I also use the Calm app, which I find very helpful. It has
yeah,
thoughts to help you get to sleep. And I also use the Waking Up app, which I've spoken about before. Now, Sam Harris is what you might call a secular meditator, but he has lots of people who talk about different approaches to mindfulness in day-to-day life. And I find those two apps really helpful, as well as your meditations. So there are a number of different strategies and things that people can use to get into meditation. And
absolutely. And different things work for different people, don't they? So you need to have as many as possible.
yeah, and as you say, sometimes you'll go, that doesn't work for me, or oh,
Yeah,
this is good, that's interesting, oh, that's interesting. And when I first started doing meditation properly, I've now been doing it for 3.5 years, pretty much daily. I really struggled for the first 30 to 60 days. And I know there's a famous book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And he says it takes
yeah,
30 30 days to break a habit and to form a new habit, and up to 60 to consolidate it more. And even then, it's difficult. Nicky's just held the book up right in front of me, which wasn't planned. But I found the first 30 days painful of the meditation. I was doing Sam Harris's 10-minute meditations, and I was sitting there going, this is rubbish. My mind isn't suited for this. It's not working. But it was only because I was on lockdown that I was able to persevere with it. And I'm so glad that I did it, because your first 10, 15 minutes of meditation, and particularly early on, the animal brain just takes over, doesn't it? Like, oh, you've got to do this for your tea. What are you wasting your time doing this for? What about this? What about this? And that's part of our evolution. That's good, that animal brain. It keeps us alive. But as I've heard people say, the mind is a good servant, but a poor master. And that does serve us, but it shouldn't dominate our thinking, where the animal brain, the short-term, egotistical, selfish brain is taken over all the time. And meditation is a discipline. It's not easy, but by persisting with it, you make these breakthroughs into realizing that there's actually another life out there, which isn't about that short-term animal brain.
Yeah.
And another thing I found useful is the idea of the home base, where you're focusing on your breathing and you're working on, that rapid thinking that just comes in. Now, I'm at a stage now where when I meditate, the other week I meditated for 20 minutes, and for the 20 minutes, all I could think about was, I need to paint my bedroom. And a few years ago, I would have got frustrated, going, well, that was a waste of 20 minutes. But now I'm at the point where I go, oh, that was interesting. Despite all I know, my subconscious was dominated by painting. Isn't that interesting that I haven't quite arrived at where I want to be yet? And I only went up and did the painting. So the other thing about meditation is, some people say, oh, yeah, do it for 20 minutes and then you'll start seeing angels and you'll have all these revelations and breakthroughs. And that it's some kind of like a logical progression to enlightenment. It's not. No, it has its ups and downs. It's the work of a lifetime, as I've heard people say. And it's a beautiful thing that takes dedication and commitment for life. And
absolutely,
you will have frustrations.
It clears your mind. But meditation is all about clearing your mind so you can focus on what needs to be focused on. So you clearly wanted to focus on one of your jobs needs to be your painting. So it cleared your mind to go, right, let's get rid of all that now. What you need to do is, Tim, you need to go and paint your room. So sometimes I'll do a meditation and go, do you know what I need to do? I need to go and do that 10-point plan now that I said that I was going to do 3 weeks ago. So that's the whole point of meditation. It clears the clutter. So you can focus on what needs to be focused on. It's not that we're going to see angels and go floating with the fairies.
Yeah. And funnily enough, I then had my lunch, and then after that I went up there and did 3 hours painting, and I was totally in the zone, listening to some podcasts. I did the hard work, if you like, during the meditation to clear the mind. But it's interesting because sometimes you just say, when people say, oh, I couldn't meditate today, that is meditation, because you're looking at it and going, well, why? Oh, you had that on your mind, right? Why is that on your mind? What can we do there? It just opens up a whole new world. Now, one of the other things I've heard about that you're often hearing, and I went on a retreat recently, it was just a 1-day meditation course. I'm hoping to do a 2-day retreat, and I've done 3-day Reiki retreats in the past, which I've found amazing. But the real trick is to incorporate what you learn from meditation into your daily life. And have you got any comments or experience of those kinds of changes?
Personally, I start the day with a 10-minute meditation just to clear out the clutter from yesterday and then move forward. And then I have quite a few people who have the meditation Mondays that they listen to it every single day of the week till the next meditation. And I've got lots of testimonials that says it's been life-changing. They couldn't believe what was there before. They've, left their job, they've left their husband, they've sorted out the issues that they had from being 6 years old. So it's quite incredible what you can achieve. But I think what you've got to do is just keep at it. The first 30 days is it's very, very difficult for anyone to sit here and totally clear your mind if you're not used to clearing your mind.
Yeah. I'm now at the stage where once you get into it, that 30, 60 days, it's then for me like cleaning my teeth. I wouldn't go to work without cleaning my teeth. I can't go into that. I'm a school teacher. I can't go into that place of work without meditating.
Yeah.
And I know that. And there was a time recently, something went out and there was a problem with my car and I couldn't do my meditation. I went in and I went, right, you now need to do your meditation. through your actions this morning. But as I said before, I think it was Andrew Weil, who's a meditative expert. He's done some work with John Kabat-Zinn, who's called the guy who introduced mindfulness to America back in the 70s, I think it was. But some days you will have funny days. And I would say overall, I'm less anxious and less depressed. I feel better and more mindful. I'm more good with transitions as well. So doing the dishes and like picking up a glass of water and feeling the sensation as I swallow the water. That's part of it as well. I start to notice things more because I'm training my mind to not be so judgmental and think about task completion, but to experience life more. And it's still an ongoing project, but I'm very much of the opinion that I can examine why I'm thinking the way I'm thinking, what we call metacognition. So the other day I drove back from Scotland and I hate long distance drives. I'm just not a long distance driver. I don't like it. Bores me. And it was quite nice to be thinking throughout the drive, you are constantly saying to yourself, you're not a long distance driver. That's interesting. Try and get the most out of this long distance drive and be aware of the fact that you don't like it and deal with it better. And I had a much better drive because I was thinking like that. And it's bringing that into the daytime activities where you are not responding with an aggressive, angry response, but you're staying calm and mindful and going, oh, that's interesting. Right, let's think about this. Let's think about that. And you just go into that more relaxed state. So I've definitely found that I'm better at looking at things like metacognition. Why am I thinking this way? I really don't like painting. Okay, meditate on it and then go and do your painting. Be aware of that rather than just internalizing all this aggression. And before I was a meditator, I didn't have that tool at my disposal. So I just found it really good.
You're communicating with your subconscious mind. So what you're doing is when you're negotiating with yourself and you're talking to yourself saying, well, I don't really like long distance driving, your subconscious mind is saying, well, let's talk about this and let's make things better. So you're opening up. You're actually much more proactive than a lot of people in this world.
Yeah. And the other thing I found is it's better for crisis management as well as being a mood balancer. You're thinking, okay, why are you thinking like this? And it's about understanding feelings and emotions as well. So you'll still have a feeling and an emotion. You go, oh, cool, you're feeling angry. Why? Or you're feeling a bit upset. That's interesting. Why? You're not trying to bury it. You're trying to realize what's going on and to have a discussion with yourself. Yeah. I was reading a great book the other day. I can't remember what it's called, but I'm going to quote it in a future podcast. And this woman said that if you've got your negative mind saying things to you, putting you down, you could even turn it into like another personality, which fits into some of the work I've done before with people like Paul Cope, etc. But so that's an interesting opinion. Thank you. You know, when your negative mind's talking to you and you kind of disempower it. And I think the true gift is by opening a door, having a drink, having a meal, bringing the meditative practice into that, it just gets you far more focused on being alive now in the present. And I think that's been the greatest gift of meditation, certainly.
Totally agree with you.
I mean, there are different thoughts as well. Some people say you need these peak experiences in meditation to open the door. And then you have other things saying, well, it's about bringing it into your day-to-day life. But I think it's elements of both. And as you said in the past, it's about what works for you, isn't it? Find the balance and take it into your day-to-day life and become a better person. And it does fit in with the idea of personal development, but also spiritual development. And I'm not really a religious person, but I am fairly spiritual in many ways. And I find that the meditation just complements that rather than overpowers it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I think what I'd suggest is get a 5-minute meditation and give it a go. Give it a go for a week and you'll find that you actually will see something from that, and then do a 10-minute meditation the second week rather than go, let's do a 40-minute one straight away and just have a go. Yeah. And what I'll do is I'll leave a free recording that you can put on your podcast so people can have a go at one of mine if they like.
Absolutely. And I can't recommend yours more highly, but starting nice and easy and then building it up. I think that once you get to that point, though, I'm at a point now where if someone said you can't meditate, I'd be heartbroken. I don't know how I'd operate. So getting to that is wonderful. and it is a real compliment to someone's life, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Do you practice yoga or do anything else that's kind of to do with spirituality or
I'm trained in
meditative state?
Reiki. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
trained in EFT. I'm looking at practicing yoga soon.
Mm.
But I just do the Reiki, EFT, and the hypnotherapy at the moment.
Yeah, I do Reiki as well. I've passed as an angelic Reiki teacher. Found that very
Oh,
helpful with the
fabulous.
meditation.
Yeah.
But what's EFT? Sorry, just for people who don't know what that is.
EFT is emotional freedom techniques. So it's like the tapping.
Yeah,
It's also one of these up and coming therapies, like hypnotherapy. It's older than hypnotherapy actually, but it's the tapping the feelings away.
yeah. I found that useful myself. And I know that is it Badly Drawn Boy, the musician's got a lot of issues with depression, and he's quite famous and quite, a bit of a celebrity. He's quite open about
Right.
his mental health and said that the tapping has been absolutely incredible for him. But
Yeah.
again, this is where you need to get an harmony of resources to find what works for you.
What works for you? Absolutely.
Good stuff. Have you heard of non-duality, that approach to meditation, where it's something I've spoken to with Joanna, who's a yoga teacher. It's the idea that instead of you being you and the outside world being external, but that you being in the world is one whole. I found that quite useful with meditation, the feeling that everything I experience out there is a projection of the inner world as well. And
Right.
that instead of thinking of external events can control me, it's kind of changing it to the idea of my experience of that external event. I can interpret that in a number of different ways, and we're both part of the same thing. But I found that quite useful as well. And if you go onto some of the apps like the Waking Up app, they explore these kind of more philosophical traditions behind meditation. But
All right.
again, you can find different apps that suit you, because Waking Up is more about, like, there's a lot of philosophy on there, whereas the Calm app is more about the actual practice of it, and then your talks are about the actual sessions themselves. And again,
Yeah.
it's just about finding whatever works for you, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So when we've spoken about the 5 minute ones, but when's the best time for people to meditate in your experience? I know you said people do it in the mornings, and some people, when you do something, you say do this for the next 7 days, and then next Monday we'll do another one.
Yeah.
Obviously, the more you can build it into your daily routine, the better. What advice would you give to people on that front?
For me, my Monday meditation group's 8 o'clock on a Monday night, and generally everyone that joins now comes in the pajamas, they're ready for bed, and they thoroughly enjoy doing the meditation, and they either fall into a deep, lovely sleep, or they'll wait to get ready to go to sleep. But they've found that works the best for them just before they go to sleep. The 5 minute, 10 minute meditation in the morning would have to be more of a positive, let's get at it, let's achieve what we need to achieve today. So it depends on where you are. But when I'm working with the Monday meditation group, I'm working on specific goals each week. So I need them to get into a deep hypnotic trance and work that overnight. And that's what they do.
I think that's helpful. I think in the early morning and before you go to bed, it's like you're close to that dream state as well, and you can kind of process it,
Exactly.
process
Yeah.
it far more too.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would say is, when I say that I'm a meditator to people, you get a few responses from people. One is to look at you as if you're mad. The other one is, what use is that to anyone? And the other one is, I haven't got time for that, and I'm okay. And all I would say is, as well, I wanted to just say, like, to people listening, ask yourself, am I happy? Do I want to be better? If you do want to be better, use meditation. But there are also times in my life where I probably have thought I've been quite happy when really there were big underlying issues that I just couldn't see. And I think that meditation is useful for anyone at any time in their life, and it's only going to make you a better person. So I really would recommend it to everyone.
So would I. I would say is if you're not living your best life, give it a go.
Couldn't agree more. A good teacher's very, very helpful, and a good app, very, very helpful too. And I remember before the smartphone and before internet broadband and all that stuff, it was harder to get the message out there, but I do find that helpful. I mean, the session you did, I was away in 10 minutes into that deep state
Yeah.
at Hope Street when you came in to do your talk, and I thought that was brilliant. And it's such a relief to be able to relax, because people go through the whole day, particularly people with children, people who are working, etc. You sometimes don't relax whatsoever in the day. And
No,
finding that quality time for yourself is so important to recharge your batteries, and then it makes you do everything else better. And
it
that's
does.
that's the other big benefit of it as well.
Yeah.
So get
The other
started,
good
everyone.
I've absolutely the other good thing that if you're doing it just before you get to bed, a lot of people don't actually fall asleep straight away. So they're
Mm,
sat there tossing and turning, waiting to, well, if you could put a 10-minute, as you said, you went into it straight away at 10 minutes. If you could actually do that and go into a deep, lovely sleep, how much better would you feel in the morning?
yeah, yeah.
Give it a shot.
Give it a shot indeed. But as you say, 5-10 minutes. Be okay with the fact that your mind will be like having a go, saying, "What are you doing? This is a
Yeah,
waste of time." Because the monkey brain, the evolutionary brain, we're kind of programmed to survive, to reproduce by the age of 30 and 40. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And then there's youngsters then to take over. But the idea of being enlightened is to live a fuller life, a longer life, and a better life, where it's not just about those short-term things. It's just about accessing what you might call the higher order thinking, or like what Maslow said with his hierarchy of needs, accessing those higher states.
yeah,
And I think what you're doing as well is not only are you a meditator, but you're helping people who've got a lot of issues and want to make themselves better. So I think
yeah.
you're ticking all the boxes there, aren't you?
Yeah, I hope so. Thank you.
Living the dream. Right,
Living the dream.
that was great. And I was going to consider asking you to do a meditation during the podcast, but I think what we'll do is we'll just do that link, and then people can explore it in their own time. And I
Yeah,
would recommend everyone to check out Nicki's work. I would like to do more work with you in the future, Nicki, moving forward
great.
too. And keep up the good work. And everyone out there, get meditating. So, anything else you want to say before we finish?
No, just thanks for having me, Tim. It's been great.
No worries.